Hey guys, happy Wednesday. This is Danielle and Alex. We're here for Rise and Grind podcast from playing field to parenthood. This is episode 6, which is wild. We are officially in November and super excited to keep this going with you guys. So many things to look forward to. Really excited about last week's guest appearance by Ruby Malin. I thought it went really well. It was super cool to have our first guest. So shout out Ruby. Thank you so much for doing that for us. The goal for today's episode, hopefully you guys are excited because we are going to be taking your questions from Instagram that you guys have all sent in and answering them live here on the podcast episode today. So be a little bit of back and forth and just really dig into the good stuff. I mean, you guys asked some really good questions, and I think you guys are just really like going straight for the kill. Like it was nothing like, it wasn't any like easy questions like who's your favorite baseball team. It was like straight into like what makes you tick. So super excited to dive into those questions today and just give you guys a little bit more insight into like our opinions and kind of how we would deal with certain situations. So first question for Danielle is, how did you improve your mental toughness in the circle?
Yeah, I think I wish that I would have learned this skill set a lot younger. Mind you, youth sports is very different now than it was back when we played. But when I really think about like the mental toughness piece, the 2008 Olympic year stands out the most because, yeah, I was talented, but the one thing that always seemed to hold me back was like that negative mindset or that hint of doubt or just that angel devil mentality that I always listened to the negative piece. So I learned real quick, like I had to trust Coach Tar had put Ken Ravizza, who was a sports psych, in my corner and said, hey, this is kind of the path that we want you to go down. Like you have the talent, but like we need to figure this piece out. So we actually had him with University of Washington and we had him with Team Canada. So that 2008 Olympic year, Ken traveled with us, not the whole year, but man, he really opened my eyes to just the awareness and ability to understand moments in the game and how it can spiral really, really fast. And you can be rolling and then all of a sudden in the 4th or the 5th inning, one thing happens and then all of a sudden from there, you're done. And I think so me getting to read his book and be with him a good chunk of that, year 20 of mine, like I was young and I'm trying to figure out, navigate an Olympic experience. And so for him to just simplify some things of being able to recognize emotions, I think the biggest piece that I got from him was understanding like the one pitch at a time. You don't understand until you're actually in it, how gassed you are after a game. If you really are present every single pitch, like get the ball back. I do my same routine. I reach out to my same people. Like the pitch that I just threw is the setup pitch for the next pitch. Like we're always thinking the game. And he was and he was very much big on that. And he'd say, hey, you'd be great the first couple innings and 3rd or 4th inning, you'd go off the rails and you could tell you're saying like your same self. And that to me was big. And then he was really big on like understanding your like lights, red light, green light, yellow light, like when I'm cruising, what it feels like. And then when it starts to get yellow, what is it? Is it umpires' calls? Is it our team hasn't got a ton of hits? Is it mental mistakes, errors? And then red. When you start to hit that, like what's your routine in the moment when shit's hitting the fan? And I think at times it would be a cast of blame on everyone else and no accountability in the moment to pick other people up when they needed to be picked up. Hardest role on the field is that pitcher, right? Like we have to deal with so many outside things, and a lot of them we don't have control over. We have the control to step on the mound, try to execute a pitch and hit a good spot, but I can't control where the ball goes or who's going to be able to make a play or not. So I would say being able to dive into the Ken Ravizza stuff was huge. And I know you have heard it before, but like the working out and how hard you're choosing to work when no one's watching really are the little things that can kind of help sharpen your mind in the moment where there's a hint of doubt, right? Like when you can blend the mental performance stuff and then you can blend your work ethic, the sky's the limit because you just have this confidence to know that no matter what, like I've checked off my boxes. So I, in the moment, can go and execute because A, I can be okay if I fail, and B, I know what it's going to be like when we win. And that's always the hardest thing for athletes, not knowing how to fail or what happens when you do fail And that was something our mental performance coach with Canada, Wade Gilbert, in the 2020 Olympics said, like, I need you to do a visualization session on winning an Olympic medal. And I need you to do a visualization session on going into an Olympic game and losing that game and
Mm-hmm.
understanding what that would feel like. So you have an understanding of it, because that's why people get so heartbroken, right? And it sucks. I hate losing. I'm not saying I was ever mentally prepared to lose, but I thought about it.
Right.
And at my age, I was like, I'm going to be okay. But when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, and you have 4 years to be great, and NIL and all of these other opportunities are there, it feels like the world is just on top of you, especially when you make mistakes.
Oh, it's so hard. Yeah, it's so funny because I'm thinking just this last weekend, my 9-year-old, he's 9 now. My 9-year-old had a playoff game for football and they lost. And he's very emotional. He's very invested. He is giving everything he has. I mean, this kid comes off the field, he's dripping sweat. Like, he's going all out every play, which is exactly what we've asked him to do. This whole season, our biggest focus was on effort. It's not about winning or losing. It's about effort. I mean, they're 9 years old. Like, this is not like live or die, like scholarship, no scholarship. But like, in order for him to understand how to continue to push himself and gain those skills that he needs physically, he needs to know that every single play he's thinking, he's imagining, like, if I could never play football again, did I give it everything I had? And like, I know that might sound extreme, like to a kid, but that's the only way that sometimes that's what it takes for them, for their brains to wrap around what you're asking them to do. You have to tell them, hey, listen, I know you love this sport and I know you really enjoy playing it, but if you could never play again, do you feel like you tried your hardest? Do you feel like you gave your all on that last play? And it was so hard because the tears were not because he didn't give effort. It was because he lost, number one, but like also he felt like his teammates didn't do their part. And so that lesson is so hard, because when your kid's not the one that didn't give the effort, and they rely on their team to help push them across that finish line, like, that is such a hard thing to like face. Like, you look into the eyes of the kid, like the kid that you love and like would move mountains for, and just be like, I'm sorry your team failed you. I'm sorry that they didn't come out with put their best foot forward. So like, that mental piece of it and getting him to move past, you did everything we've ever asked you to do, and there's nothing more you could have done. And I know that this hurts, and I know that it's hard because you want to keep playing and you don't want to be done, and now you have to wait till next season and all these things. But it just that switch of, it's okay to lose. Like, it is okay to go through these scenarios and just to like process it in your own time. Like, he might have closure 48 hours later, but we continue to talk about it. We continue to say, you know, like, what can we be doing in the off season now to help your team better next year? What can we do when we're talking to our teammates? Like, what can we bring up with them? Like, how can we push them to be better? Yeah. So then you're feeding into that overall goal of like making it further in the playoffs next year. So it definitely brought up an interesting discussion with him, because again, he's still 9. And I feel like I've had him with Penelope already, because she's a little bit older, like, and she can kind of differentiate between like when it was something that she could have done better versus something that was out of her control. But I think that control piece that you're talking about, like, especially as a pitcher, like understanding what is and is not in your control, that's a huge piece of mental toughness too, because this actually kind of ties into one of the other questions, which is about how do you deal with like good communication with umpires, and like making sure that your kids, especially younger, are like being respectful and not. And I know you've seen the crazy parents, like, more than once, where they're chirping at the umpires or the coaches, and there's so much going on. So the kids pick up on that. And I think being able to understand that, like, you cannot control an umpire. You cannot control the ref. You cannot control a call. There's nothing you can do in those scenarios. So once that call is made, you reacting to it internally is okay. You can be pissed about it, but to verbalize it and make it known that you had an issue with it, that's where you have to like be able to have control.
That's probably, I would say, one of the hardest things across the board in youth sports in general is you're seeing a lot of referees and umpires burn out. And like, even for youth soccer right now, it's really hard to find umpires. And we had one on the weekend who was horrible.
Yeah.
And, you know, my husband had yelled something and I looked at him like, dude, like, chill right now. Okay. Maddie's 10. Like, I just think that there comes this point where at the end of the day, the things we can control and the things we can't, right? Like, we cannot control the umpire piece. Me as a parent, I know that I will never sit in the stands, and I haven't as a coach ever gone into it with an umpire ever.
Right.
I don't see the point. They're going to make the decisions that they want to make. I am big on the open lines of communication, and I will say I wasn't great at it in college. I would get frustrated at umpires, not where I'm calling them out, but I used it as a way to fuel my fire to be better. Okay, well, if you're not going to give me that pitch, then I'm going to work even harder. And
I'm going to move it a half a centimeter, just a little bit, just for you. Yeah.
And it'd be frustrating as hell. And I'd come into the dugout and Alicia Blake, my catcher, would have to be like, hey, calm down. And I'd be freaking pissed. Like, we work our asses off to execute good pitches, right? Like, and when they don't get called, the zone is small. Like, there'd be umpires in college we get, and I knew before the game, I'm like, damn, this is going to be a mental challenge for me because I know this right now.
You get used to them. Yep, exactly. Oh man,
I will say, the one thing that would help me is when I constantly talk to my catcher to still keep working it and trying to get that spot for me. And then they learned that when they had someone behind the dish that wasn't going to give great pitches, as long as I could see that there was communication on a pitch that maybe missed, the catcher would look back. Hey, where is that? Where do you want that? Let's try to keep getting that for my pitcher. That would at least give me some type of confidence that maybe it's a pitch that I can get. Because at the end of the day, I always want to keep working to be able to execute that spot. My plate, right? Not anyone else's. And that always kind of gave me a little bit of a leg up in the moment, even though I wasn't going to get the pitch. But I think that parents need to chill more than anything. I really mean that. Like, you know, a lot of these umpires and referees, especially in basketball, like, they're young. And we don't want to turn them off from, like, not wanting to do it. I understand sometimes we mess up. Sometimes we make the wrong call, or sometimes stuff happens. But at the end of the day, it's not the World Series. This isn't a game where, you know, you have a University of Arizona behind wanting to recruit your kid. I get in those high pressure moments in those big tournaments where maybe calls are blown, where there are those spectators that are recruiting your kid. It may feel a little bit more intense. But, you know, something I got from that mental performance coach from UCLA and that whole run they did last year to the Women's College World Series, and losing Megan Framo and not having Rachel Garcia and still making it and having the team that they had. Like, he was so big on, like, it's already written. What's going to happen is going to happen. Like, chirping and being that constant to then put that egg in your kid's dome to think it's okay to be that brat or to say, or to show up an umpire. Sorry, I'm not down with that. And I don't like it. There has to be a level of respect to the game. That they have to take better pride in.
Yeah, it's hard to, like, I know, and my husband's going to call me out on this probably, but I definitely have more outbursts than I like to, but I try and frame them in a positive way. Like, I'm not like ragging on the umpire or the ref. Like, I try and flip it to where what I'm saying is making it clear that I don't agree with what just happened, but at the same time, I'm making it a positive thing. So, like, let's say our pitcher misses a pitch and they call it a ball, even though it looked like a strike. So, like, and this is something like, if you call up Stephanie Ricketts, she will tell you that she would hear me yell this from left field when we were playing. Like, I would yell from left field and I'd be like, oh, that was beautiful. Like, you painted it like Picasso. That was an awesome pitch. Like, I don't know how I would have swung at that. Like, you know, so, like, I'm definitely still and this is like my way of trying to adapt and make it so that I'm still supporting my kids and being positive, even though I disagree with the call. And I think the issue with me, like, I have a hard time is because I feel like some of the umpires and the refs and the officials don't want to be there, and they're behaving and calling in a way that is like, they can't be bothered. Like, they hate the fact that they're doing this. And it's so hard because I know as a coach, I didn't want to be there every day. As a teacher, I didn't want to walk into my classroom every day. Like, I know how draining those jobs are because you're literally volunteering your time. Some of them get paid, but like, you're putting yourself in a position for criticism all day long, right? Like, you're the person, you're the punching bag, you're the target on your back. Like, you're that person for everybody else. And so I know how draining that can be. But at the same time, like, I hope and I pray that like officials understand like the power that they hold, and just do the best that you can. Because if I feel like you're not trying your best, if I feel like you're like walking around like, I hate this, I wish I wasn't here, that's when I start to go like see red on the inside, because I'm like, we're sacrificing a lot to do this for our kids and we're trying to be supportive and I want to show them a good time, but like, it's another thing that's out of your control. And if it's out of their control, then at least they know, like, don't fail them too. Right? Like, and be the best official that you can be. But I'm definitely guilty of the chirping sometimes. But like I said, I'm working on it. It's a slow process. I'm hoping by the time we hit high school, I'm not that, I don't think they're embarrassed by me yet, but I'd like to keep it that way. I don't want them to be like, oh, Mom, you can't come to my games anymore because you say too much. My husband would have already kicked me out of the games for sure. But
it's such a good point though, because you are right. You can tell the ones that want to be there and the ones that don't. And I tend to not always think of it that way. There will definitely be more times if I do ever want to say anything, it tends to go more against the ones that are older than the ones that are younger.
Yeah, that's true.
Just simply because I think of it from like the mom lens of a lot of these kids that are going, they're shy and they're trying to figure it out. And this is a way to earn a little bit of cash. Yeah, you need to be better, but that self-confidence is so important too. So when you have a 12-year-old ref or a 13-year-old ref, I'm like, okay, we got to be mindful. But the guy on the weekend was well into his 40s, maybe even 50s.
We had like I was 25.
Well, then we had like 9 offside calls, and like 3 of them were on my kid. And Andrew's getting frustrated, and I'm like, I'm definitely frustrated, but maybe it's just soccer. I don't understand soccer as much, so I'm just gonna let this slide.
Soccer's a tough one because it's a lot of judgment calls. Whereas like baseball and softball, it's a little bit. I mean, other than balls and strikes, that's a judgment call, but and it's funny because you were talking about like there were certain umpires that you'd get familiar with, right? Like that you knew. And in Hawaii, we only had like 4.
Yeah, true.
That would ever do our games at home. And so it was like you build this relationship with the same umpires for 4 years that know you and that like know your tendencies. Oh man, I like you get up and I'm like, Ken, come on. Like, I was safe. She tagged me on the top of the head. Like, which was great because like we had relationships with them. Like it was cool. But at the same time, it's like, help me out a little bit, man. We're supposed to be buddy. Like you're the home squad. Like give us a little bit. Tie goes to the runner every time. Come on. But that's just
I can at least say the times that I've got mad at youth soccer referees have been just simply because my kid's bigger and my kid will get hammered and it won't get called. But if my kid goes after the ball and just like kind of lightly touches a shoulder and the girl goes down because she's significantly smaller than Maddie, everything's always a penalty on Maddie. So that's at times where I'm like, this is so bush. Like soccer is something I was never good at because I'd be a red card all the way. Just because it's an aggressive sport. We went to a high school game Saturday. I'm like, shit, these girls are like aggressive and they are hammering each other. And I actually kind of dug it a little bit because the guys I see more as like the weenies that really fall and hold the falls. Like the
Academy Awards. Academy Awards for the men. I think every time they get touched, they're down. My God, my leg's broken.
But the girls are badasses. Like they hit someone and they get back up and they're like, all right, let's go. And so with Maddie, I always have this like, oh man, I don't want her to get hurt because she's always getting hammered because she's the bigger kid. But if she does anything back, it's an automatic for her. So that's when I'm just like, what the hell? This doesn't even seem fair. But
that's tough. Yeah, that's super tough because so like Penelope's very similar in that she's very pushy too. Like she's very aggressive. Like she's up on them like the whole time. And they're playing in a league that's older than them. So that's another not disadvantage, but it's definitely some like not a burden. It's like something in the way, right? Like there's definitely a big size difference between like who she is and who she's playing. And when something happens and she doesn't get a call that she's looking for, or it goes not her way, we're working on this, but she turns into a heat-seeking missile and will just tear through like whatever's happening. And it's definitely, but I will say, like, I'm very like honest about like, okay, she definitely fouled. That was definitely Penelope's fault. Like that was clearly her fault. But then they don't see that like this happened because there was a play before that where she got fouled and you didn't call it. So it's like these repercussions of her reacting to that. She is definitely not emotionally prepared to like process it and say, it's okay, he didn't call it on me yet. Like I need to like I can't react, especially in soccer. Like, you know, it's like bang, bang, bang. Like you're just going. Like she doesn't have time to like sit there and contemplate and say, okay, I know this is wrong, but I'm not going to go attack somebody. She just takes off. And that's hard. It's so hard, especially like I remember like on the softball field, balls and strikes, like you're just like cringing sometimes. And I was a catcher up until college, caught bullpen in college, never caught in a game. That is one thing I do regret. I wish Coach Bob would have put me in just for one inning to catch.
Yeah.
Because that would have been cool. But as a catcher, I think a big thing is you're supposed to be respectful no matter what, because everything you say and do is right in front of that umpire. And your job is to work for that pitcher and make sure that you're doing everything you can, butter him up, make him him or her feel like the greatest umpire in the world, like your buddies, like shake their hands, introduce yourself, make sure they're okay. If there's a ball that gets by, like that is your responsibility as a catcher, is to make sure that that is constant, that you're feeding into that and making sure that nothing that they call is a result of your behavior. It's only a result of what's actually happening. So
great point.
Yeah. I think that kind of answers that one. Let's see. What's another good one we got? Oh, injuries. You didn't ever have anything too crazy.
My junior year, I did. People don't really know about it. I actually had a stress fracture on my forearm. My forearm was cracked. And this was at the Cal State Fullerton tournament. And
the beginning of the season.
Yeah. And I had just learned a new pitch going into my junior year, which was a backdoor curveball. So there's more movement with your hips where you're more closed off. So when you come through release, there's potential to hit your hip to whip through the pitch a lot more. But Glasso was like, we need a new pitch. And that was a money pitch for me. But when I went down in that Cal State Fullerton tournament, you know, the more I threw the pitch, the more fatigue I'd feel in my forearm. Right. And so when I would go to like pick up the ball in the circle, like I almost felt like I couldn't hold the ball really, really hard. And I was like, this doesn't seem good. So after that Fullerton tournament, we had a weekend where we were having a Husky Classic where we're home. So I had to go get an MRI on my arm and the bone was cracked. And so we're like, dang, is this out? Like the more you keep going. So I had to take close to 2 weeks off and I had to use this bone stimulator, which is the weirdest thing. I don't know if kids use them nowadays, but it came in this carrying case and you stick your hand in and it almost is like just going and penetrating the bone and like fixing it and healing it. And I had to do that. Like I'd almost sleep in the thing. And it actually ended up being okay, obviously. And I threw a lot that year, but there was a definite scare that 2 weeks where I was like, damn, what's going to happen? We just lost our pitcher the year before. Aaliyah Macon actually transferred to go to UCLA. She was going to be our solid number 2 pitcher. So we only had
conference too. Oh, that's
I know. Oh, it was just grimy. But we had Felicia Harris and Jenna Clifton, who both only pitched in high school. They weren't coming in as like legit pitchers. So it really was just me. But I can at least sit here and say, from someone that has seen teammates be burdened by injuries and, you know, on the college level and with the national team, some of them have handled it with complete grace.
Right.
And others, I won't name any names, have gone through it. Poor me, poor me, poor me. And the poor me's consume you as a teammate because you feel like you need to help them, but you can't. Like, there's not a whole lot that I can do to help you throughout this process other than like comfort you, but it
Be there.
consumes you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the best example of teammates that I've seen are the ones that feel it for that time being of like, your day or two. You figure out if
Just
you
need to
need
be pissed.
to
Yeah, you just
your,
need to be upset. Yeah.
your surgery, whatever it is you need to get. And then you go through rehab as badass as you possibly can be and figure out
Mm-hmm.
a way to come back better and stronger. And a lot of the ones that had got hurt throughout college would still be there at every practice, still be taking their mental reps, still be like trying to be that solid of a teammate. And shit, I respected that so much because I'm like, I don't know how I could have handled that. I was very fortunate, knock on wood, to not have anything crazy kind of take me out.
For an
Because
extended period of time.
it
Yeah.
sucks. I think
Yeah.
this year was the first time as a family where we handled something where Maddie got injured in the middle of Little League season. But we were at a soccer end of the year party and she fell and she came over and she's like, my pinky hurts. Shit blew up. And I'm like, dang, I think she broke her pinky on her throwing hand.
Yeah.
And Andrew's like, she's fine. She's fine. Next day I had to call a softball game Sunday from the house. And I'm like, Andrew, you got to take her into the emergency room. And she cracked her like growth plate on her pinky
Ugh.
hand, throwing hand. And she was in a cast for maybe 4.5, 5 weeks. And that was hard to deal with because she was missing Little League. She doesn't get to pitch as much with her select team. So Little League's go time. That's
Where
when
she's
she
getting her
gets,
reps. Mm-hmm.
yes. And reps she really needs. And I took that really hard where I didn't really know how to handle it. But it's not like I was negative towards her. I was just sad because I knew she was missing such a key piece to where her development and she needs those reps to continue to keep growing and growing. But we kind of set out a plan. She'd go ride the Peloton in the garage, the bike, and would still kind of keep working and working. She could do soccer with her cast on. But injuries is the hardest part. And I think as the parents, trying to be as positive as you can with them. And the more I realize the age that they're at, the more I think I realize that like, dude, it's okay if you got to take some time off, like
They heal so quickly. They heal so quickly. Like if it happens to us, we're like down for 6 months and them, they're like 2 weeks later, they're fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had the same, Penelope was in soccer and she fell backwards and cracked her arm. It was gnarly too. I'll send you I'll try and get a picture in here so you guys can see this break because it was bad. And soccer, so she doesn't need her arm, and we were going into a break, like a summer break anyway. So like we could not have picked a better time to do it. However, my daughter is super tough. Like when you have a tough kid and like they can handle a lot of things, like bumps and bruises don't really get them, but I have never heard her cry like that, and it broke me. I was like, when they set that cast, because they had to like finagle her arm a certain way in order to do it. Oh my gosh. It's like you're a parent, like your kid in pain is like the worst feeling in the world. And being able to walk them through, like, you're like, you have to stay calm, right? Like you're looking them in the face and saying like, it's okay. I know this hurts. I know I can't help you. I'm going to get you help. Like we're going to move past this, but getting them to process that and like understand it happens and people get hurt and you can do as much as possible to like prevent that. So, you're lifting weights, we're running, we're making sure our body's in the best shape it can possibly be, because that truly does help prevent injuries, is making sure that you're at the best physical position that you can be in. But even then it still happens. Like our freshman year, I came in with Kelly Majum. She was in our class and we were playing our fall games against Chaminade D2, like, the fun fall games. And we're up. I think we were already mercying them, I think, at that point. And she's running from second to third. And I watched her tear her ACL. And she was supposed to be like, she was set to be our star center fielder that season. And it was in the fall. So she had to go get surgery and go through all of that. So I know that was a really rough year for her. And she was already super homesick. A lot of us from California were that way as freshmen. And so, and then having a really rough season, I think that really made it harder, because it was like, you start to feel that guilt too, right? Like, I think she went through a lot of like, if I wouldn't have gotten hurt, how much better could we have done? That kind of a thing. And I think she did a really good job of just like staying steadfast with the program. Like no matter how hard it got, she just stayed very stoic about everything and was just like even keel about it all and was pretty positive. But you know, sometimes you're not capable of being positive about it. Sometimes you just have to like keep the status quo and just go through everything you're supposed to go through. And like, I'll cheer when I need to cheer, but it's not going to extend further than that. Like, I don't feel the optimism inside. So I just need to kind of go with the flow right now.
Yeah.
And obviously my sophomore year, her freshman year technically was when we went to the World Series and she was leading the nation between her and Georgia Tech. You're a friend.
Jenny?
Yes. With the home runs and both lefties, like little lefties. That was so cool about that was like, you got these little, like they're like 5'2", 5'3", like they're not like these big beastie girls and they're leading the nation in home runs. That was crazy.
Yeah.
And then she got diagnosed with cancer and had to go through that and radiation and all this stuff. So like, if there is somebody who I think is like the epitome of going through an injury and coming back better and going through that process, it would definitely be Kelly Majum, Elms now because she's married.
Yeah.
So shout out Kelly, but it's really hard to manage as a teammate because you're dealing with your own feelings, but like being able to put that aside and say like, if it was me, how would I be dealing with this? So that's a good way to approach it is like, if it was me, I'd be pissed. Okay, then they're probably pissed. So like, let them be pissed. It's okay for them to feel that way. And then as a parent, it's very similar. It's like, I need to understand where they're coming from, how I can pull her back from this and like get beyond the initial shock of like, okay, this is not good. So
yeah,
man, because you also like, I'm pretty sure you're the same way where you're like, okay, if it's not bleeding, you're fine. Like,
totally.
like you're good. It's okay. And I definitely was doing that when she broke her arm. I was like, it's fine. Get up. And she stood up and you could see it like from the like, oh geez, now I sound like this crazy person on the sideline.
Yeah.
Look like Harry Potter. So it is tough to walk that line. But I think, you know, the big thing as a parent is encouraging them that they're okay, because even if they're physically not okay, like you telling them that in their head is what they need as security to know I may not be okay, but like if mom's like, you know, it's just like, it's like a back and forth. It's like a moment thing that you have to have with your kid to like, let them know no matter what, like if you could never pick up a ball again, it's gonna be okay.
Yep. Amen.
So, you know, we're just thank you for coming to our TED Talk. It's really okay, let's see. So we did injuries, we did mental toughness, and the last one I think we'll touch on youth sports burnout. So we kind of touched on this in our episode about youth sports, and we both believe that it's really important to push your kids into multiple sports and allow them the freedom to kind of just go with the flow and be in anything they want to be in, as like within reason, obviously. Like don't burn yourself out because you're trying to get them everywhere.
Yeah.
But how would you say you're helping prevent that burnout with your kids?
Definitely playing the multiple sports, I think. And right now, Maddie does the 2 select sports, so it makes it tricky. It almost feels like we've added a 3rd select sport because she's doing feeder basketball, which is a team you try out for. And we've already been practicing all of October. You go all the way through March. And it's pretty intense. But I look back on what kind of I remember of my upbringing, and I was so fortunate to have basketball all the way up until I graduated, because it just gave me this love for athletics in general, but it made me love softball because I was just damn good at it.
Right.
I never felt this immense amount of pressure, but we also were not practicing nearly as much as youth sports are now year round. Like softball, we didn't have high school softball. I've said that. So when it was basketball season, we'd do the stuff on our own at the cages or put in the time, but like we didn't have a whole bunch of required practices that we needed to go through throughout the whole year. So I was very lucky to just have basketball. Basketball was my favorite sport, no, hands down. I was just better at softball. I wasn't getting an athletic scholarship in the U.S. for being a 5'7" point, you know, like it just wasn't going to happen. And I think about this all the time with our kids because, you know, there's times where I can tell that Maddie's definitely tired. I think that it honestly is more of a mental battle with my husband than it is with the kids, because I'll say
Mm-hmm.
to him all the time, like, hey, like, I think maybe tonight we need like no soccer because we go. I mean, Maddie's schedule, she's soccer Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, basketball Tuesday, Thursday, softball. We have 3-hour practice tonight, and we have a 3-hour practice Saturday nights. And usually we're playing tournaments and stuff. And I'm like, dang, if I'm tired at 37, like, I can't imagine she's the one that's actually like constantly doing it. So it's trying to allow times for her to have that break. This weekend was a freaking blessing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, softball was canceled Saturday, and Friday night our games were canceled. So Friday night we hung out at home as a family. Saturday night they just had soccer, and we got to go to dinner with friends and hang out. And I was like, this is one of the best weekends I feel like that I've ever had. Sunday, nothing. Mind
Yeah.
you, we still went to the cages. Friday, I took Maddie to pitch, and Andrew took her to hit Sunday. But it's refreshing, right? It's outside of team stuff. Like, she gets to work out with me, and then when she gets to go hit with dad, it's a completely different dynamic that they have. And
Right.
she looks forward to both. But this weekend made me realize like how much I miss just at home family time, no sports. We just had soccer, but it was the most, I just feel like my battery's so full from this weekend. And I wish that I could give people the easiest answer in the world to say, this is what you need to do if you feel that your kid's burnt out. But I don't know, because it's the spot where we're at in the world where every single sport seems like it's life or death. If you miss, you're
Right.
not going to play as much. If you are going all the time and you're missing this sport, you're going to lose opportunities. It's like, at the end of the day, I have to trust my parenting abilities and that my kid's damn good and that we're going to put in the work, and the coach is going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah. And how do you just like, how do you say they're burnt out? Like, what is that criteria? Is it they don't want to go anymore? Is it they
Yeah,
physically can't, you know, like what is, because I feel like that's important too, is like understanding like what is true burnout versus what is I'm just exhausted right now.
I think I have not seen a true burnout from Maddie, like a
Mm-hmm.
true burnout. I've seen at times a lack of motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where her and I have butted heads when we go to the cage or we throw.
Right.
And I get pissed off. Like, I don't care that we're messing up here, but like, dude, I'm coming to spend an hour with you. And there's a lot of athletes that would love this time with me. And
Mm-hmm.
you are my ride or die number one. Every single day I'm choosing you to do this. So when we go do this, like, I need you to come in and work really, really hard. And I think sometimes when we have to add on the additional stuff on top of soccer practice, basketball practice, and her team stuff, sometimes she feels like she can get away with not working as hard
Mm-hmm.
because she's already put in a lot of time this week.
Right.
And I'm like, but this is the period where we really start to learn ourselves and how we get better and how we make adjustments and how we push through being tired. And I think that's the one thing parents need to learn too. It's like, where do we get to where we understand that our kids are tired, but it's like, hey, we're also tired in the 7th inning when I pitched a whole game and it's a tie ball game or going into the bottom of the 7th and I got to go get us into the 8th. So what are we thinking? Like, all of, at times, the moments that we've kind of worked when maybe we feel tired, that we push through with a great effort, we come out on the other side and, hey, I'm proud of you. You worked your ass off. That's a confidence builder for them when they are tired in a tournament
Mm-hmm.
weekend where they've played 6 games. Okay, yeah, I can do this because I've done it. And
Right.
we as parents have the ability to give them that constant reminder, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you've done this before. But I cannot sit here and say that I've seen like a complete burnout from her. I haven't seen it.
I
So
would think, yeah, I would think it would have to be a consistent both lack of motivation and just like physical,
mhm,
like I'm done. Like you can,
yeah,
because you can tell, like you can tell on a kid's face when they are just not all there.
yeah,
And I think so if you can be attuned to that, but also understand and like be able to read on their emotions when they're going to and from the events, like are they excited about going? Are they not excited about going? Why are they not excited if they're not going? You know, like I've had Penelope come out of practice sometimes and she's like, that was a really bad practice. And I'm like, well, why was it a bad practice?
hmm,
Well, I think I could have done better. Okay, well, let's break that down and figure out why. And, you know, she's just got that like look on her, like the drama. Oh my gosh, it's so It's very, very
A
exaggerated,
lot of
but
soccer drama. There's a lot of soccer drama.
always, always. And, it's hard because you want to push them and you want to make sure that they're giving their best all the time, but we know how draining that is for somebody to be asking for you to be at 100% all the time.
Yeah.
And I think you make a good point, is like we get to those weekends sometimes, and if we get rained out, we're like dancing, like we're celebrating, like, yeah, like this is cool. I'm excited not to go right now.
Hell yes.
And are we, like, then you're like, well, then why the heck are we doing this? Right. And it's such a hard balance. And like, I'm excited for the holidays because I know everything calms down and like everybody does take that time. And I think they come in the increments that we need them to come, those breaks. And I think that that's super important, is that when you do get that time, is making sure that you're stressing with your kids and your family, and really making pointed efforts to have that family time and to really connect with them. Like even you guys taking her to the cages one-on-one, like, yes, you're working, but that's also one-on-one time with her, right?
Yeah.
Like you have conversations in the car, you're singing, whatever, like there's little things that are happening. Dominic had, my 9-year-old had batting practice with his team, and we showed up like 10 minutes before they were done, and we booked another 30 minutes, and we were all just in the cages together, like hitting and playing with the tees, and like, we're turning it into something that's about all of us. And the poor little ones, like they get dragged to everything, so they're great sideline siblings, but it's hard for them because they're constantly having to do things for, and I'm sure you've had it with odds, like she's going to everything because Maddie's playing elite, right? Like that takes priority, and that's a hard thing too. So I'm holding out until Penelope can drive so we can have a little bit more freedom for the little ones. But you also have to watch, it's not just about the athlete getting burned out, it's about the family getting burned out too. And I think that's super important to be aware of, and to be make sure you're keeping an eye out on that too.
It's interesting too, because so many people message me on Instagram all the time. And the first thing that they say is like, we love watching your youth sports stuff. And some of them are actually quite a bit older. And they say like, our kids are all grown up and they're done, and we do anything to be back at the ball field or at the basketball, time. And I cherish every one of those messages, because it couldn't be more true. Like you have those moments when you're in it and you're like, damn, it's so hard right now. We're frustrated. I feel disconnected from my partner, my family. We're always on the go, but I can't picture my life being any other way right now. Like I loved this weekend and it was so bucket filling. And next weekend we're gone Thursday through Sunday for an event for my husband where we'll have no sports, all family. I'm really looking forward to that.
Right.
But I do love a schedule and a routine, and my children knowing I have practice tonight and I'm going to work hard. And Tuesdays, like this Tuesday, I have an opening for my pitching lessons, 9 to 10, and no one's going. And I'm like, Mads, like you should totally come and pitch. Like, and she has basketball and she has soccer. And I'm shitty for wanting her to do 3 sports, but I'm like, Ma has an opening where no one's going to be using the cage time and I'm giving lessons. Like, just come and throw. Even if you throw for 25, 30 minutes, that's better than doing nothing.
Right.
But I love how busy we are. I really do. I do catch myself at times saying, I wonder what it'd be like when we don't have this. But then I listen to every single message that people tell us and they say we miss the shit out of it. Enjoy it, embrace it, because before you know it, it's going to be gone. And
that grind, that just like looking at, like you sit at that table at the end of the day, you're walking through the door, you've got bags, you stink, like you're sweaty, you've got water bottles everywhere, uniforms that need to be washed. And it's like just that feeling of knowing that you're doing it together is like, it's still so fulfilling for us. Is like, I know we've been running all over North Dallas the last 8 hours and we haven't been home since 6 a.m. But like now we're here and we're together and we did it. It's also that like, we're very type A and like we want to be busy. We want to do all these things. So I think that also comes just from like who we are as people, but knowing that like my husband is supportive of that and he's the same way. And like, we do this and we're grinding it out for the kids, is I think that also brings you closer together. And then in those moments when it's a little bit quieter, you'll have that to reflect on together. Right. Like you'll be able to like reflect on that and say like, what a cool time that was, where we were both on the sidelines for that moment when she scored a goal, or that, when she pitched a shutout, and I think a lot of parents would definitely resonate with that, because we get that a lot too, is like, it's tough now, but you're going to miss it. Like everybody says that to us when we're walking around and the kids are like pulling things off the shelves and your hands are full. Yeah, I know, but so are our hearts. So it's okay. But I think that kind of sums up a lot of the good majority kind of summary of like a lot of the questions we got. A lot of it was about youth sports, which I love, because I think that was a great episode, and I think people really resonate with that. And then a lot of it was about sort of more like the deeper strategy stuff that you have to go through as an athlete, and then now how we're kind of trying to figure out how to either pass that on to the kids or like prevent them from struggling in the same way. So I think that was really good.
No, this was fun. I have to end the podcast with giving my husband a shout out, because we actually are leaving to go to Boston Thursday. So my husband's being inducted into Boston College Hall of Fame. He played baseball there. So I couldn't be more excited, because I know he's been such a supporter. He's been to both the Hall of Fames at UW, with the team induction in 2014 and then the solo induction in 2018. So to be able to have this moment for our family and for him, like, I don't even know if he knows how excited and how proud I am of this accomplishment. Like, it's a really big deal. And I've been so fortunate to have him in my corner, coming and moving here from Boston and having the university and having it always be more about me, not intentionally. I don't make it that way.
Right.
But
it just happened.
Been the best supporter throughout it all. So I just hope he can go into this weekend and embrace, number one, all of his teammates and his friends and his people, and just own it and love it, because it's just a cool opportunity. And I'm really excited to just go with our kids, and they can sit there. They picked out their pretty dresses, and they're just so excited to go and celebrate Dad, So it's going to be a really cool week.
That's super exciting. I'm super proud. Congrats to Andrew. And it's, I know it's hard for guys to like just take a step back for a minute and like, soak it in and just like accept the love kind of, they're always like so gritty and like, don't touch me kind of thing. So
it's so funny, because he was sending a text to the baseball and the softball coach today, and he goes, we should try to get into the softball facility. And he goes, I don't think that the softball coach knows who you are. And I was like, well, because what I said to him, I was like, you should get me in if any of the, like, she wants me to talk to any of the pitchers or like connect, because this weekend's not about you, Danielle. And he was totally joking, but it was so funny the way he said it, because
it's an ongoing thing, right?
Me, but it was so funny because it was a joke, and he made me laugh, and it doesn't happen as much as I want to laugh. So when he said it, he goes, it's not about you, it's about me this week. And I was like, I love you. But really though, if the Boston College pitchers want me to like go and like talk shop for an hour,
but really,
I'd be more than willing to go show Maddie the softball facility and meet the pitchers. Like, I love that stuff. That stuff makes me tick. If I could travel around the United States and connect with pitchers and talk shop, like, there's nothing better. So I hope that actually works. But
that's our next phase of this whole thing, is we're going to start doing a traveling consulting.
God, that would be kind of dope though.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Go talk to teams.
Yeah.
Reach out to us, sponsors.
Amen.
Yeah. Freaking flyer miles.
Well, this was great. Solid episode 6. I like kind of keeping it sometimes like super chill too, and just asking people questions or at them asking us questions, and kind of giving them a little inside scoop to what gets us going. So this was great. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And
thank you guys for sending in the questions. Keep them coming. If you have more stuff you guys want us to cover, things you specifically are curious about, send us a DM or comment on one of our, either the posts, the podcasts, whatever. We'll see it. So we appreciate it, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And that's it for today. Bye.
Now.